Yep.
Great. So it's 7:32. Let's start first. As I say, Chris Sampson won't be joining us. Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Can we have a vote to approve them?
I make a motion to approve them.
I'll second them. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. There.
Hi, Neil.
I guess the first question is, Mayor, you've got some requests.
Yeah. I was just pulling up my request to remind myself of my request. So
$200
well,
and
I first,
800 for Cornwall Day.
right. So I just thought just to set it up a little bit, we had a great first meeting with this, business roundtable idea. I think we had 11 or 12 people plus Bianca and I, and Richard was there, and
Congratulations.
there was some good discussion. So, and I'm glad, Neil, I'm glad you're on the call today. So because it was a bit of, obviously we're trying to get a little bit more ahead and make it a little bit more of a organized event. So I just wanted to get ahead of that in terms of a budget standpoint, because Neil and his designer, which was so generous, really scrambled to get all those promotional materials done last year in time and everything. So if we just can set aside this budget now, I think it would be really useful. We're not ready to go print anything yet, obviously, but I just wanted to, so I don't know if, how this works, but if we can sort of slate a budget for these things, and then when we have a better idea of exactly the material cost again and the printing, we can obviously do a vote when that time comes. But I was just saying, last year, I believe, and Gary, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I was looking through the old emails and everything. It was about $700 in total for promotional materials for Cornwall Day. We would like to repurpose some of those. I'm just a little bit worried about the reality of that. But perhaps we can. We also had feedback that we should make the bigger size of lawn signs, and they were the smaller size. So that's in and of itself a reason to print them. So that's the reason for the 800, just in case these larger lawn signs cost more. Just as an aside, I also definitely would like to price it out with our local, our local business called Thunder Horse Creative, I think, Danielle, assuming that she's not more expensive than her competitors. I think it would be great to use a local printer. So that's the budget for that. And if a second thing about Cornwall Day, and this should certainly be a separate budget, because I think it's, the promotional material budget should be its own thing. But I just wanted to propose that the EDC does add a little bit in for arts and music. And again, no specific plans at this point, but a lot of enthusiasm for making the day, have a little bit more structured events, and hoping the EDC could support that. There is a lot of enthusiasm for businesses to offer more crowd pleasing events as well. So that's a little bit more TBD.
Does anyone have any comment?
Mayor, you were in your email or your write-up suggesting $200 for arts and music. Is that what you're still asking, or would you like in a different amount?
I mean, I think it would be nice to slate something, and my idea was like, I don't think we would get a band for $200 or get an artist to do a workshop for $200, but it's almost a in support of things that might be happening. Maybe we could help. We could help support a business that is putting on that. Like, for example, there was talk of maybe an art an art show at the gallery store down in Cornwall Bridge. Maybe he can find his own music but maybe, you know, the EDC could help with some aspect of these bigger events that we hope to happen throughout the day. So if that's too nebulous at this point, I understand, because I think we're obviously still really developing this, but I just wanted, in theory,
Yeah,
I
I
just thought
don't-
it was a nice idea.
Yeah, I don't think it's too nebulous. I actually was wondering if you would like some more,
Mhm.
because looking at our finances, we still have several thousand to spend by the end of June, which is our choice. If we don't, it goes back to the town, and that's fair.
Right.
But it's, you know, Cornwall Day, you're really building something bigger, and if you need additional funds, you know, ask for them.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
What day are we
Sounds
shooting
good.
for at this point?
We're keeping it the last Saturday in July to keep some consistency there. So this year it would be July 29th.
Okay,
And there was talk about like having the day activities be more focused in West Cornwall, and like sort of late afternoon, early evening activities be more focused in Cornwall Bridge. So, you know, more to come on sort of the structure, but everyone agreed that it could have more of a you know, planned schedule of events that people are more familiar with, and we promote before the day more effectively than, you know, last year was our sort of first go at getting businesses together. So
good. Any other comments? I personally think it makes perfect sense to do this. Anyone else?
Do you want to make a motion?
so do I make a motion to support the budget of both of these?
Yeah, I'll do it for you, and
Oh, okay.
and they do it a little differently. That
Okay.
you know, that we approve for $800 for marketing, and if it's amenable to the group, up to 400 for arts and music.
Mhm. I like that.
Fine, I'll second that.
Thank you, Gary. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Good.
opposed? Yeah, you're out there somewhere. Okay, good.
Are we gonna, is there a moment we can talk about the next business roundtable session?
Yeah, I was
Absolutely. I
thinking
think
about that.
that's a little further on down the
Okay,
program, but we can do that now if you wish.
no,
Well, I'll just say something to that, is that because of the enthusiasm, as obviously this Cornwall Day is tied to an actual day and has a timeline that we need to address. I think there's great support, great importance to this whole sustainable CT initiative and opportunity that perhaps Cornwall can tap into in the local level. But the next roundtable meeting, that the group that was there at this meeting, so it's not every single, you know, business person was there, obviously, was interested in meeting again about Cornwall Day, you know, to structure it more specifically. So I think it's too hard to do two things in one meeting. But again, if there could be a future roundtable where it did have that agenda about sustainable CT, I think many people would be open to it as well.
good. Yeah, I just want to make sure it gets onto the
Mhm.
calendar that we have one of these coming meetings to address sustainable CT. So if you think it's not appropriate for the next one, does that mean we're into the fall? Was that?
I think, you know, we probably need another this meeting, and then I'm hoping that like the businesses can, you know, kind of take it and run with it and come back. So in other words, because we're meeting again on May 4th, actually. So maybe sometime in June or July,
Right.
when Cornwall Day sort of like has, you know, more of the plan in place, we can move to the sustainable CT agenda. I don't think it has to wait till the fall, but I think it has to wait until we have a more specific plan for Cornwall Day for people to focus on something new.
Okay, good. Well, I'm That's great. So let's see if we can nail down a date fairly soon, just so I can alert Kate
Yes.
and we can get her to start working on an agenda.
Yeah, that
Well,
would be great. Oh, go ahead, Bianca.
I think it could almost like be a little bit parallel, because I think we're setting off on our own with the Cornwall Day with that group of people that had come to the first meeting. And it's sort of like creating its own dynamic. And I think the next roundtable could maybe start whenever you are around, Duncan, too, because, you know, I think it's going to be people wanting to meet. And I think it'll hit a different group of people, perhaps, that is more interested in that kind of subject matter. So June, I think, is definitely a good time to think about it. And we should just figure out a date to do that. Maybe,
All right.
you know, think when
So-
you're around.
Okay, so I will communicate with Kate
Right.
and I'll try and come up with 2 or 3 dates in June. And I'll come back. So who do I come back to then try and nail that down?
I mean,
Well,
it depends if Kate has an idea. Maybe you could meet in the Cornwall Conservation Trust space and office. Because we're meeting and maybe Frank Way is happy to host all of these meetings, but I obviously can't speak for him. So I think we need to, or the union even is available for
Right.
meetings. So if Kate could also help coordinate that, then I'm happy to send out an email to our business list now that we have that business list with the agenda and the date and information.
Great. Okay. All right. I'll be in touch within the 2 weeks.
You okay with that, Duncan?
Yep.
I do want to congratulate you, Mayor, for making this roundtable day as successful as it clearly was. I apologize again that I was sick and wasn't able to be there. But you
Thanks.
obviously got this thing off to a great start.
I think most importantly, people want to talk to each other, and that's
mhm.
you know, that makes it pretty easy in some ways. So, but thank you, Simon.
Yeah, but you actually managed to make it happen. I think that deserves much recognition. And I think it's good that, you know, it's building, and I'm sure, you know, the next one will get more people coming in, you know, we'll get the momentum of its own. Good. Next, Chris, you're going to talk to us about P&M carding solutions.
Absolutely. How you doing, everybody? I probably met about half the people in this meeting. Hope to meet everybody else. I am a general waste management company. We do general junk removal, estate cleanouts, hoarder cleanouts, dumpster rentals, light demo. Really, if you got something to get rid of, that's what we do. We try to partner with as many you know, property management companies, real estate agents, local businesses, you know, town agencies when we can. Like this past weekend, we partnered with Park and Rec to co-host the Clean Up Cornwall Day, which for short notice, I think it actually went pretty well. We had 30 adults and 15 kids attend. And I think overall it's been a great experience being in town. You know, we've been up here for about 1.5 years and in business for a little over 1 year now. So I think this has been fun. I'm enjoying it.
Is most of your business coming from Cornwall itself or a broader
A lot
area?
of it, there's been a good amount from Cornwall. Most of my business is in the northwest corner, which I love working locally as much as I can.
And you said, Chris, this is an entirely new business for you. You didn't operate this business or related business somewhere else before?
Correct. So I worked for the previous company before I started this business for 8 years. And while everything happened during COVID, I really enjoyed being around more with my kids. And so I took this as the opportunity to make my own schedule, and I could set aside time on days if I had to be somewhere or I needed to do something with my family, I could do that. instead of having to ask and be an hour and a half away from home every day to and from. I was commuting to and from the city every day.
Wow.
I was in charge of civil construction for a rental company. So I was in a different borough every day of the week, and it took a toll on me after a while, driving in and out. And this is a different, owning your own business is a completely different kind of stress. And I don't think I would trade it for anything else at this point.
Good for you. And how do people hear about you? Are you advertising, or is it word of mouth? Or?
So a lot of it's word of mouth. I do some advertising. I advertise on local ads with Google. I do Facebook ads. I take ads out on local placemats. A lot of it's, it's a customer service business, and to recommend you on to someone else they know.
Good. Sorry, I think I interrupted someone. Was it Gary? Was that you I was interrupting?
I was going to ask the same question, Chris. How do you market?
Yeah, it's a lot of word of mouth. I try to do as many local papers as I can. I'm looking into some local radio advertisements as well, for people who drive every day like myself. Catch someone at the right time, and it's all about brand recognition at that point.
Where is your base of operation? Where are you
So
centralized?
I live
Where
on
are you
Dibble Hill
located?
Road.
Where?
I'm on
Dibble Hill.
Dibble Hill Road right here in West Cornwall.
I know, but that's not where all the dumpsters would be, and you don't have a ravine behind your house,
I don't. So all my 95% of my rubbish and stuff goes to Albreda and Torrington. They're a transfer station. They sort everything as well. We donate what we can. We repurpose what we can, and we give away good furniture as often as we can. The goal is to never have anything here, and for everything to always be out on rent. We do have a dump trailer that does come home with me, but it's always empty when it's here. This way I can make emergency calls if I have to.
All right. Sounds good.
Are your customers more, I mean, I guess somebody who's renovating could be one too, but is it primarily like people moving in or out? So therefore real estate transaction based, or is it more varied than that?
It varies. There are a lot of real estate transactions because, as everyone knows, when you've been in a place for a while, stuff builds up over time. And as soon as you have to move or touch it, you realize how much stuff you really do have. I do a lot. The majority of my business is spring through fall. Winter gets a little slow because everyone stays inside and doesn't want to go out in the cold and deal with everything else. But spring is busy, a lot of spring cleanups. Summer is always insane because people are renovating and just are tired of looking at some of the old stuff that's been around forever.
Right. So I imagine you already know some of the local real estate agents, and, just so people like that are aware of you, can recommend you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've tried to introduce myself to as many real estate agents as I can. I come from a sales background, so I call it boots on the ground. At least once a month, I try to go out and hit every real estate office in the 20-mile radius. I email blast as well, just to keep top of the email chain when they search. And I have a pretty good relationship with a couple of the local real estate agents in town, as well as some of the surrounding towns as well.
Nice.
I had a question. Do you do brush removal as well if people have got things like that?
We do.
Yep. That's good to know.
Whatever you need to get rid of, we can get rid of.
Sure, you've got lots of scope in Cornwall. Excellent. Well, thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you.
Appreciate your joining us.
Yeah.
I think the next point is to clarify the extent of our role in the Taste of Cornwall idea, which we discussed at the last meeting. And Mayor has very reasonably pointed out that she's pretty stretched with Cornwall Day at this point and can't really do a lot on that. So I think we need to think about how we are going to interact with Michelle on that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we should have a discussion with Michelle. I mean, I think we could promote it, but to have someone there perhaps on the ground to delegate where people should set up might be, you know, a bit much for most of us who actually work during the daytime. It's a, you know, so maybe we could have Michelle perhaps do it, or at least we need to talk with her, I think. I think it's a fabulous idea for those who like to do it. Yes,
Well,
Gary.
when Michelle brought it up, she suggested we take it on if we want to do that within the EDC world. I've thought about it a bit, and my question is, what's the value-added proposition to someone of business showing up to a social evening community event? And the layout of Town Green where this might be positioned is far enough away from the center, and I just wonder what would you know, someone really get from showing up, and therefore the work to go into getting people to show up from our side.
Well, I think there's one person who had immediately responded to that. And so that's why we have this discussion now, because obviously it went to mayor straight away. And other than that, I don't think there have been many people who have sort of heard about it. And my question would be the same. And I think when I've talked with mayor, we've sort of wondered, you know, why would businesses want to be there at a social event when you just want to have fun? But some people might choose that, you know, everybody has a different way of wanting to promote themselves. So, I mean, we could,
Yeah.
we
I
could
agree.
promote it
Yeah.
and with an email, with social media, and that's it.
What's I'm sorry, I don't know what the event is.
The Taste of Cornwall.
It's a Friday evening gathering on Town Green. Food's available. There's music. You know, so it's an evening town or late afternoon town event.
Mm-hmm.
And Gary, I had the same reaction, and maybe it's just as easy as, you know, perhaps Bianca or somebody who wants to, or I could reconnect with Michelle. Maybe it's as simple as like a few businesses who just would like a table and to be able to have that exposure, which is fine. And we can of course send out an email now that we again have the email list. But I had the same reaction. Like, I don't think it's an environment where people are going to be thinking, oh, you know, I want to learn about that new business, or I want to think about that job that I need to get done and what contractor am I going to use. It doesn't seem like an environment where that would necessarily be the most productive for businesses when people are just having fun and eating and hanging out.
I mean,
Although, you know, perhaps some of the, you know, food and beverage service businesses in town, you know, could interact with them, and basically would be their choice to do so. But it could be another platform for them.
But I guess one thing I don't understand about the event, and I wasn't at it last year, I don't know if anyone on this call was at it last year, is like, if it's Taste of Cornwall, aren't they already engaging with food businesses in Cornwall? So that whole part of it is like, I would assume sort of built into what they're doing. So this
If
would
the
be like
structure is the
different.
same as, if they're doing the same structure as last year, it was basically a buffet line. You paid or donated some money and you took your food. And then you went and listened and sat with friends.
But was the food from
It
Cornwall
came from
cooks?
Cornwall.
Right.
I think it engaged Cornwall farmers, Cornwall food producers. So those entities are already engaged in that, and they are all listed there and promoted in some form, which is great. That's why it's called the Taste of Cornwall.
Right. So that covers like a really nice selection of businesses in that food space anyway. So Okay.
All right. Who's going to get back to Michelle on this?
I can give her a ring and talk to her about that.
Okay.
Certainly will.
Moving on, Gary, do you want to give us your update? Now that we see a
Sure.
lot of your surplus.
Regarding our budget, which runs through June 30th, we have 4,885 remaining, of which 850 is already approved previously and another 1,200 tonight. So that leaves us with 2,765 to spend by end of the year.
And you're also pursuing some proposals for extending the Wi-Fi in West Cornwall.
We put that on hold when we had the discussion at our last
sorry,
meeting.
you're
We're
right,
waiting
we did.
on
Yep.
Frontier and Optimum. Yeah.
Anyway, that could be useful for that if the timing works.
As a question, I came in sort of as it was happening, the vote to expend $850, I think, for the Cornwall Day. Is that what you were talking about, Gary, in what
Yep.
you just mentioned?
It was 800 for Cornwall Day and then up to $400 for art and music related to that event. And previously we had approved the rural intelligence ad and the support for the Winter Lights project from Cornwall Association.
Right, but Cornwall Day is in July. So how that gets expended in this budget, you have to make sure that, how budget things happen. I'm not quite sure that was to promote it, which may be expended this fiscal year.
The promotion,
Sorry.
the promotional materials, I think, I could look back. I think we did definitely order them in June because we got them out, so
Right,
that
right, no,
there was
I
a few
understand, I
weeks.
understand that.
But the other part might not be, yeah.
Just clarifying that I don't think it's a problem, but you do have to expend them in this fiscal year to make sure that they're expended in this fiscal year. That's all I'm saying. And promotional stuff certainly would be ahead of the program, ahead of the event, to be doing that. The sort of day of the event kind of expenses could be a little more problematic because they're in the next fiscal year.
Even if
I
we
came in a little-
allocate them now for that specific event.
I'm not positive on that. I think that's a little.
We generally run on a cash flow concept, not an accrual concept. There's a bridge between end of June and July. If there's something that we're planning for the July event and it can be spent in this year's budget, I encourage us to spend it this fiscal year.
No, thank you,
Right,
Richard. That's a good
yeah.
point.
I agree with you, Gary. I'm just bringing it up to make sure that we're all on board on the same thing.
Well, our credit rating is going to be superb because we'll be paying in advance for some of these things. That's excellent. Good point there. Thanks, Richard. Now, the other aspect of this is, Bianca, you've got a request for $1,025.
Well, it's sort of a crude request. So it's hinged basically on the fact that we don't have any Visit Cornwall maps left over. We need to reprint them. They need a bit of work because there are some structures that need to get onto that old map. Graphics need to be moved. A road needs to be added, so it could be a bit more extensive. That's why I allocated about 5 hours for Bart Arnold, who may use way less than that. It may only take him 2 hours. And then Carol Weigold, does all the text updates. Jane Harold and myself will be doing the research for that because there's a lot of shifts and changes happening. The more definite amounts would be for printing copies. And I would suggest that instead of printing again 3,000 maps, which lasted us a bit over 2 years, rather printing 1,000 or 1,500, and then being able to update them next year again. And perhaps those updates will be more minimal. At that time, we won't, I mean, last time, Bart didn't really have to do much. He had to just draw up a few little graphics and Kara was able to plug them into the map. But because of having to move 2 structures around, you know, as silly as it sounds, it's going to be a little bit more extensive. So this is just sort of like a proposal for an approximate amount. It might be less than 1,025 in the end. And then of course, printing 2 maps, 1 each for the kiosks so that they are updated. And each map also will then have a QR code and the website Explore Cornwall printed on the front so that that logistic of updating incoming businesses and outgoing businesses, let's hope none will leave us, can be updated more fluently.
Bianca, if this is approved, do you feel this would be done by mid-late June?
Oh yeah, I
Okay.
hope so. Yeah.
Sounds like it needs to be done straight away if we don't have any more maps left over. It's obviously been quite a success that we've
Yeah.
moved all the other maps. So again, I'm strongly in favor of this. Does anyone else have a point they'd like to raise on this before we think about?
I think it's a very worthy project.
Okay, can we have a proposal?
I'd like to propose that we approve the finances
proposal?
for this.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Jane, you want a second? All in favor?
But to be clear, you're requesting up to $1,025.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Good. And then the second question was whether we should advertise in the Music Mountain concert program.
Right. So that came to me through Steve Branfield. He had emailed me wanting to see if I had interest to advertise in the Music Mountain brochure. And since we have them on our website, and I think it's a really summer nearby event, it might be a good thing to advertise the entire town. I mean, really, people should know about Cornwall in general. And when you have a little brochure like that, you know, you get interested and you look up Explore Cornwall and you get led from one thing to another and you scroll your life away on Explore Cornwall and you explore Cornwall, and then you go out and you visit food entities. Hopefully they'll be all open by then, and you know, maybe a few local businesses. It's to interconnect, to promote our town outside of social media. And that, I believe, for an eighth of a page is $160.
190.
190.
I think if we're going to do it, an eighth of a page is probably too small. No one's going to catch it. Would be my thought.
Well, I was curious. I looked at the pricing. It was 190 for an eighth and 600 for a quarter. But before going further, Neil, this is your world. What's your perception on this idea?
Yeah, I was just wondering, is that cost for one insertion?
It's the entire season.
It's the entire season.
Do we know if we're able to change the ad through the season? And the reason why,
I suspect not. I think they print one, their entire calendars in one brochure, and that's what they use the entire season.
I was asking because it feels appropriate to message specific events and things that are happening. you know, Music Mountain is quite in our backyard. So, I mean, I think if we were just gonna advertise the town, I would go with the 1/8 of a page. I think 190 is fine.
That's
Just
enough.
remind people of Cornwall, and you know, we have that little ad. I don't know that I would spend more unless they could be specific, you know, to
Right.
that all day.
The only thing, no, I agree with what you're saying, Neil, but the only thing about the 1/8 of the page, and I think it says the size, like the ad that we've used for rural intelligence that we approved again last meeting is a nice ad because at least it has the iconic bridge and it just has the, you know, main copy about things that happen in Cornwall or things you can do in Cornwall in a very high level. I wonder if the 1/8 of a page would be too small to get sort of any message going. Excuse me.
Does it have specs?
So it's no, it would be an 1/8 of a page is, God, it's printed in green, 2.5 inches by 2 inches. So what I had sent out, I think, to everyone is basically using the Explore Cornwall logo and the QR code and sending people to the website, you know.
You're not going to fit all that into that space. I don't.
I'm
Yeah,
just saying wherever we can, and Neil, chime in if it, you know, I would rather than use there's nothing wrong with the Explore Cornwall logo. It's just that it's a logo and not an attractive iconic image of anything that would make you
Right.
understand, you know, what the town is about. So that would be my only point, that I would be worried that the logo would get a little bit lost. But maybe not.
And
pretty
I have a
small.
concern that if we're looking at Music Mountain, why not also look at Sharon Playhouse, which has a much larger audience?
I like that a lot.
This might need a bit more thinking than we're able to do tonight. Unfortunately, it's you know, the timing is not good because both of those
Right, exactly.
venues are
Dates
about to gear up.
Just a thought.
Price. I don't think we could go wrong for the price. Right, Mayor? Like we could work on something that's 2 by 2.
So did I understand, Gary, you said, and I don't, if I heard correctly, which I may not have, I don't hear that well. An 1/8 of a page was 190 and a 1/4 page was 600.
Yeah,
That doesn't make sense.
I agree.
We
I
should
agree.
just buy two, we should buy 2 1/8 ads side by side.
If we
think
probably
that's-
should look at examples, Bianca. I mean, I think
Well,
I,
yeah, I know
Yeah.
this was just because it was brought to me and I have no time
Right.
to look really. I mean, for me as a business, as a retail business, catering mainly to, you know, women, it doesn't quite make so much sense. And coming out of a winter, it's always stressful to come up with, you know, yet another, you know, dollar amount for advertisement. So I thought it might be, you know, a better idea. So it's just, you know,
I did look at
was a
their,
thought.
sorry, I looked at their, you know, what they did in previous years, and my sense is that they're making a big push to get more advertising in this year's. Because they contacted me, they contacted Bianca and a bunch of other people. Which makes me think it may be different. Yeah, there you go.
Mhm.
It may look quite different this coming, you know, the next one, but in the current one, I think a 1/4 ad does show, you know, the small one
Right.
is
This
fine.
is, yeah, these are the 1/8s.
Those are the 8th.
Yeah, this is,
Okay. That's
know,
fine by me.
that is a lot of copy there then. Okay, no, I'm,
this
I
is the
stand corrected.
sample that they have on their website right now. And
Yeah.
this looks like,
So there's a little room for a copy, not just a logo, even in the 8th.
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think for $190, you can't go too far wrong.
Right.
you're right. I'm just seeing if there are any more.
There weren't a lot, but I'm guessing they're going to be more because I think they've done a big outreach.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, Gary, also to contact, I could take a look at Sharon Playhouse.
Yeah, the Sharon Playhouse is $200 for a quarter-page ad for the entire season.
That sounds great.
We should do it.
I think that's
Yes.
black and white.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on their site right now. Okay.
Which one do you think is more use to us, Neil?
I think the Sharon, because it's a broader audience that is not as close to us. I think we could bring in more visitors with the Sharon Playhouse than Music Mountain. It's a lot of seasonal people that live in our town.
To your point, Neil, about taking advantage of events, it just came to me that, besides Cornwall Day, which we maybe aren't ready to figure out how to advertise, Taste of Cornwall. I mean, maybe we could come up with a way to highlight certain things, then taking a broader perspective as the EDC, and I don't know how much time we have on this, and it would require, another conversation, obviously, but there's just things that we could maybe, in collaboration with the Parks and Rec and supporting Taste of Cornwall, that's a really nice specific reason to come to Cornwall, or maybe the Rose Allgrant has their own advertising budget, I believe, but maybe it's just an opportunity to sort of think of ways to collaborate on this as well.
Yeah. I think specificity is really good.
What's the deadline for Sharon? Do you know, Gary?
There is none on their website right now, but I can follow up. Their first show doesn't open till end of June.
Okay.
End of June.
Yeah, so they're not printing yet.
Okay, so I think that unless there's any other discussion, the choices are: 1, do we go with Sharon? 2, do we go with Music Mountain? 3, do we go with neither? And I suppose 4, do we go with both? It sounds like number 1 is the most popular.
Neil, or team, can we do a black and white ad that will have pop?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Then that sounds, it's $200 in the Sharon Playhouse playbill.
Yeah, it's a big audience. It's great.
Yeah, sounds good.
Can we have a proposal?
We know how
Second.
many people, how many performances or people
They
at either one
have-
of these venues?
They have 6 performances a weekend, and it's a 300-seat audience, so it maxes out at 1,800 a weekend, and it runs 12 weekends a summer, 12 or 16.
Right, but it may not be sold out.
Oh, no. No, but that's the same as, Music Mountain said that, it has 6,000 eyeballs. That's, how do we quantify the number? But Sharon Playhouse is quite, it does fill up quite a lot.
Can you state the specific proposal, Simon, when you state it, just so I get the numbers?
Well, I wanted to see what people thought about the various choices, but it sounds like the group is coalescing around the idea of Sharon Playhouse, which is, I think, makes sense from what I'm hearing in terms of the numbers and the price and the amount of space we get for that price. All of which I think is good. And I think the mayor's idea of putting in some reference to Cornwall Day, even if it's past for a lot of the period, would still be very helpful.
All right, so I propose a $200 expenditure for an ad in the Sharon Playhouse magazine.
Second.
All in favor? Great.
And so we're not going to do anything in Music Mountain. Sorry if I missed something.
There. We've
Okay.
switched,
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
moved our affection elsewhere. Good. Okay, well, we're busily spending the surplus. So where does that take us down to? It takes us down to about
$1,545.
yeah. Gordon, are you on? I know you're hiding behind Jane's iPad.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Okay.
Sorry, we've been busily spending our funds. Do you want to give us a quick report?
Sure. I'm not sure how much things have changed since last month. We're still we're meeting on Friday to start the environmental report on the West Cornwall septic program. We did submit a grant to do some improvements in the village centers. One of the other things I'm working on now is trying to sort through the grant proposals for electric vehicles with the idea of trying to get a charging station in West Cornwall and one in Cornwall Bridge. Working with Will Shank on that for the new market. And again, trying to get push his business through the hoops required to open. And what else? I heard through the grapevine that Northwest or Northeast Building Supply may be doing a big expansion project to put all their business under one big roof in Cornwall Bridge. So that would certainly be a huge economic move in the bridge. And we're again plodding along with a tax sale on some commercial properties in Cornwall Bridge that are delinquent in taxes. So quite a bit of various different projects going on at once. One thing that's interesting is, that's certainly new this month is that the P&Z put out a brochure about cannabis, and I think they're gonna. It's up to their judgment in the next year or so, or maybe even quicker than that, 6 months, whether the town would entertain having cannabis-based businesses in town. Few towns in northwestern Connecticut have chosen to do that. But obviously, as far as from a straight economic standpoint, you can see the impact it's had on Great Barrington and Sheffield is huge. So anyway, just stay tuned to that. They put out a survey in the Chronicle, and they'll be guided by public sentiment. So that's, again, another something new and current. So that's what I had.
Gordon, do you have an idea of when we are going to get the West Cornwall signs back on the covered bridge?
They're up
They're up? Oh, good.
now. Yes, they're up.
Oh,
Done.
wow.
Yeah.
Don't I
So,
always ask you for something when it's just happened?
yeah, I drove through there
Oh, good.
at noon today. But no, it's great because we got a local person, Scott Tebow, is head of the bridge for the DOT, and he takes a great personal interest in making sure that it is up to snuff, and they are going to paint it, the last part of fixing it after the accident that happened. And so the bridge will be closed, I believe, for nights. And there's gonna be publicity about that, but starting, I believe, in May, they're gonna do a couple nights to paint the bridge. So again, they're taking into account trying to keep it open during the day, which is nice. And the signs are up.
Hmm.
Good question, though. Thank you for asking the question. I had a good answer to.
Any developments with Frontier or Optima?
You know, they're stringing away. Casey Cook's done a great job in trying to monitor the progress. Frontier actually, even though they haven't started stringing their proposals or their wires, actually I think have a much better public communication process than Optimum, which seems to be a little bit like the Wizard of Oz. And Frontier again it's going to be an interesting thing because they're going to come out with a little bit of a different product than Optimum. They say theirs is going to be more robust, more storm reliant, and they are basing it in the old telephone company building, which is on Cemetery Hill, almost opposite Town Street South. There's a commercial building that predates zoning on the side of the road before you get to the Cornwall Cemetery if you're going uphill. And that's the old telephone building. So Frontier is doing their project in all 169 towns in Connecticut. So whereas Optimum only has a part of that. In a nutshell, Optimum will be servicing all of Cornwall that now has cable service. And so we're very lucky to have them here with that, because wherever Frontier goes, they're sort of cherry picking, especially in these small towns, the more profitable areas of thicker settlements. So there are some areas that will not be covered by Frontier, especially in the corners that are a little more sparsely populated than the village centers. So there will be different products. They're talking about $70 a month for 1 gigabit upload and download speeds similar, which apparently is harder to achieve with the other technology. So we will see some real competition from going from no fiber to having actual choices, at least in some parts of town, is a huge development. That most people didn't see happening even last year or 2 years ago. So anyway, all good on that front, and it opens up a lot of possibilities for two people that want to run, data heavy home-based businesses. It's good. I mean, especially considering other towns are really struggling to even get coaxial cable coverage throughout town. So it's a big plus for 2023.
Yeah.
Is there any, Gordon asked, Marina Munoz and her business attempt with the library that didn't go through? Any news there? Any thoughts? Anything we can be doing to help her?
I believe I did talk to one of the owners of the Pink House, and they are talking to her about setting up there. The old library building is problematic because there's no public, there's no toilets, there's no plumbing, and it's hard to open up a new. I mean, the way the health code reads, they'll make accommodations for existing non-conforming setups, but open up a new setup in a non-conforming space is not generally allowed.
It sort of feels
So
like this is what we're built for, though. We've got a willing participant who's got funding, an idea, and a desire. I feel like, is there something more we can be doing in helping her find a near-term solution? Because the Pink House probably isn't ready, for another 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we're looking at where there is empty-ish space. There's not a lot of empty space that can accommodate
What about Bain?
Public. Yes. That is empty at the current, I could,
Right.
yeah, that's a
Yeah,
thought.
no, because he had asked me, I mean, if there is anyone who's interested, I had also, there was a person who through the EDC email came through looking for a space, and actually she was primarily interested in what's his name? God, Will Shank's place that, where the Housatonic fly fishing shop was. So I had sort of directed her that way, but I also mentioned to her Bain Real Estate. So maybe talk to Bain Real Estate. I'm sure, because that's where the Wish House was originally, way back when. And it's a sweet space in there that can accommodate a business. So maybe give it a shout.
I had thought, Oscar, that you were asking the opposite question, both of which are good, which is how do we determine or find a way to utilize the library? Because that's a historic building that's sitting empty that I think probably all of us in the
Well,
town.
There's another aspect to it, but I think that question seems already been answered. It seems pretty steep hill to climb.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been empty for so many years, so let's climb the hill. Do you actually need the bathroom? I've talked to Torrington Health. I don't know necessarily that you really need the bathroom. If you do, like, why don't we talk to who owns it, the electric company, the field next door? Let's do what New York does, get a 99-year lease, build a $30,000 bathroom, call it a day. Like, there's ways that we can think about how to get that space, up and running. If we could just identify like what the actual issues are. Otherwise, we're risking losing a historic building in our town that could be utilized for something. So that's a longer term, it's not going to help Marina right now. So I understand your question about where can we get her, but maybe in a year we can get somebody else in that building, and that'll help bring some more vibrancy.
I think parking was also raised too, that it's like on the other side of the street. So technically, even though I know Frank visitors park on the west side of the street, but
Right. I mean,
I could be mistaken.
I have also heard the parking thing. I don't know about the reality of that either, but 2 parking spots in a bathroom like that, there's a lot of land there that I know that we don't own, but that can be leased out for 100 years easy, and you just build it. And if in 100 years they want the land back, then take it back,
We looked at that 10 years ago with the library when they were still going as a library there. And it's not easy, or else it would already been done.
Yeah. No,
Because it's owned by the power company, and there's all sorts of government regulations of using power company property, and the health district wouldn't allow the library to lease to have a septic on somebody else's property. So the long and the short of it is, when the septic gets put in, that's probably going to crack the nut, because we were working on this probably for 15 years of how do you get that building up to speed. And as long as it was used as a library, as it had been, you could be grandfathered in. But as soon as you changed it, especially, I believe, for a business which was substantially different from what it used before, then all sorts of health codes came in to play. And especially because of that particular building may not even own the land it sits on. It has a well that feeds the wandering moose right next to it. It's not an easy fix on that particular spot.
Yeah, and I guess I don't mean to suggest it would be easy at all. Obviously, that would have been done, but
Yeah.
But maybe we could just keep a work stream on that. When I spoke to Torrington Health about that building, what my suggestion was is a pop-up. Like, that concept didn't even exist 10 years ago. And I forget what the document was which is like that, as long as there is a plan for septic somewhere, I'm sure everybody else on this call knows what that document is, that they thought a pop-up would be okay. You know, so I'm just trying to think creatively of like ways around that. Oscar, I heard about the parking. I walked past the other day and I was like, maybe you just lose the grass and you could pull your car up right to the front. You know, or and then another one can parallel park right in front of the space where the books are. Like, I don't know, I'm just thinking about how can we parallel path and just like keep it going. It seems that it would be incredibly hard, but not impossible.
I think it'll get easier once the septic is in, and once that can get connected to the septic, I think then the work can get easier on the whole property.
Yeah, I mean,
Because that, yeah, I mean, the septic has taken several years, so I mean, everything does take time. I mean, initially it was actually thought that, I remember talking way back when with Gordon, that there was supposed to be public restrooms going into that area, and that just never got to become a viable situation. So I think a lot of aspects of utilizing property around town have been explored. You know, it's not that we've sat here and just sort of gone, oh, well, you know, be
Yeah.
done with that.
yeah, and I'll reiterate, you know, I wouldn't expect it to be easy, and I don't think that anyone hasn't explored it a zillion times, you know, but it's like whoever's in charge, different people, different times, different culture, you know, it's just like you just keep pushing the rock up the hill until you get.
Can you compel a property owner to seek proof of title or to do a clean title search? So you made a comment that they might not even own the land. Did you say that, Gordon? They might not even own the property.
They may not own all the property the building sits on.
Yeah, right. But it feels like that's
So,
something that
again-
could be cleaned up or at least remedied.
Yeah. I believe the Library Association has had conversations with Nina, trying to move things forward, but with constraints.
Well, I think
it also points out there's I mean, in the big picture, there's very little commercial property available that's empty. I mean, there's very little empty property. There's very little empty buildings in Cornwall. There's very little commercial property available in Cornwall. So it points, you know, it's back. I mean, it'd be nice if we had spots that several businesses could move into at this point, but there's not a lot empty at this particular point. And the commercial zones to do that, I mean, it would, I don't know what a business is, but unless it can be construed as a home-based business. If it's doing retail, less likely, but and the commercial zones are very small. So there's very few places. 98% of the town is zoned residential. So there's very few places for businesses looking to come to town to be housed.
there is the Farnsworth property, right?
That's been sold and we're working with them, trying to crack the same nut. Yep.
I thought we sold them a little bit of property so that they would have enough room to.
Well, they still don't have a septic. They can put in a well, but they don't have a septic. And the question is, can you get the right radiuses and things of your wells? So we're working with the new owners with that property to try to get both that and the three guys on a better footing.
Okay.
But do you know anything about the meat market, Bates Market, what the
I do not
situation
know
is there?
anything.
Okay, because
Or-
that would be another commercial property in part that could be utilized for something.
Or what's the deal with the building next to RSVP that used to be a restaurant? A long time ago now, I guess, but even in my time, there was a barbecue place there, I think, right?
That's the
Correct.
McLaughlin.
Yes.
What's the deal with that place? That seems very,
What is the deal?
yeah.
You know, again, that's complicated because somebody bought it and just used it for storage. So
Right.
And
Frustrating.
and a lot of efforts gone in to try to get places in there with a reluctant landlord, difficult. I know Janet did pitch that, several different business plans. Ran up against an unwilling owner.
That's too bad.
So it sounds like that most of the commercial property or possibly usable property for commercial use is not currently in use for a fairly strong reason. It has some kind of major issue, septic, well, owner, or needs an incredible renovation, the pink house. I mean, you take your pick. They're all large projects that may not be viable to be done. That's why they haven't been. They may be viable. The sewer system may solve some of these problems. Cooperative owners or change of ownership may solve some of the issues. But in many cases, it's just not, it's not nearly as simple as it may appear. In fact, it may be close to impossible without some major change, and that's why they're not in use currently. And there's probably a half dozen properties that I can think of in 5 seconds that fit that, and maybe a few more given a moment or two. Many of them have been mentioned already. There's several others too.
But just so we can sort of get accomplish something on this topic, I think Bianca's idea was probably the best. I mean, knowing a spot that is potentially for sale that might accommodate the business without a lot of renovation. Does anybody have? I mean, I believe I can get a hold of
David.
Marina. Does anybody have a direct?
I can let her know.
Yeah. So if she needs, and I mean, just tell her David Bain Real Estate owns it. He maybe, that had been a building with a shop in it. It has a tenant who, there's a little rental income. It might be a really nice setup.
Yeah.
Great.
So again,
Okay.
that may be the most viable, idea to come out tonight.
Right, might be a good thing for the tenants too, because they'd otherwise be moving, if the property got sold and to someone who would want to use it as basically a home again, then they would lose, and that's affordable housing, yet another unit, going somewhere else perhaps, and that way you catch two things at once. So yes, please do have her talk to David Bain. That would be great. I wanted to just remind Mayor, she wanted to talk about the visitor kiosks, the signage for that we don't forget about that.
I know. Thank you, Bianca. I realized I forgot about that because it doesn't really have to do with Cornwall Day,
Right,
but I had a third, and again, this is not a specific budget request as of yet, but perhaps just a proposal to look into something. It came out of the roundtable meeting. It was actually Will Shank, I think, that brought up that these visitor kiosks, and I can bring up a picture, maybe everyone knows. Can I share? Yes. Can you see this picture?
Mhm.
Yeah. This is the one in Cornwall Bridge, and this is the one in West Cornwall. And it was just brought up that they are a very valuable thing to have. And this is where Bianca and Jane and others do a lot of work to print the large format version of the map and all of the business directory and everything. But it's, I mean, this was what Will was saying, and I think he had a really good point. It's like very much overlooked because you don't really know what it is, and it also sort of looks like a trailhead information. And I thought it might be worthwhile, since these are important and probably very underutilized, to see if we could add a sign that says visitor information, or, you know, information and town directory, or whatever the sign would say, that we could add something. Maybe it could hang down here, or how, you know, we could get an estimate. I know that Thunder Horse Creative would be happy to help us with that. So I just wanted to bring that up as a good point, that I thought, here's something that is probably very much underutilized, that could be improved, that more people would use and learn about the businesses in each of the town centers.
That's a great point. Can you get an
Yeah.
estimate for the next meeting?
Sure, will do.
Mayor,
I
I
would
think
have-
there's actually a sign in Cornwall Bridge hanging from the sign that's above that, the old gasoline SO sign. There's an antique large sign that used to have the gas sign for gasoline. Now it has the Cornwall Country Market, and that does say visitor information on it. So that's the goal, I think, to get
Mhm.
picnic tables and bike racks and stuff into that space and make that a little bit of a tourist center. I think there already is a sign. If you, I mean, not that
This
it's not
space
that
right here,
idea.
you're behind this sign you're talking about?
Yeah,
Gordon?
there's this huge sign that's,
Maybe.
which it's hanging over it. It's a standalone old gas sign that's probably 50 years old. And
Oh,
it's
okay.
been changed, and it's not compliant with any current codes, but it's historic. So it's been just reused for the country market, and it does say visitor information.
Okay.
They're hanging on that, not that you can't have two signs, but there is something there. It's a question of getting that little space up and running-ish, but I think that is in his plan to make that a place where people can go. You know, and, you know, with picnic tables, I said bike racks. And again, I think he is interested in trying to boost the signal down there. So people can, you know, you can even put another sign saying free Wi-Fi or whatever we're promoting, just to pull people over and have them sit there and check it out. But
Exactly.
Okay. Well, let's look into it, and then
I'll do that.
let's report back at the next meeting and see where we get. Does anyone else have anything else they want to bring up at this meeting? Anything from members of the public? In that case, it's 8:44. Can I have a proposal to close the meeting?
Make a motion to close the
Just-
meeting.
just
Exit.
one more thing. I know I all stumble getting on here, but there's no link on the websites, on the town website to the meeting. It says details, but doesn't actually have the link, so we can work with whoever's putting
Well,
that on.
Well, I send everything to Jane at Town Hall. I mean, the whole thing. So why wouldn't that then go to Rocco? So yeah, I mean, I don't know how to post on that website. So sorry. That would be lovely, but I do disseminate all the information to her, every bit of it.
And she's
And
definitely.
what I will do next time, I will have the link separate again too, because the Zoom link is legally supposed to be inside the agenda for that purpose. So I will also email that separately next time. So when that gets sent out, maybe it'll be easier to find.
That'd be great.
All right, try again.
Okay.
We have a motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?
I can,
Second.
all in
Aye.
favor.
Any opposed? Thank
Good
you
night,
very
folks.
much. 8:45, 8:46.
Good night.
Thanks,
Good night.
Gordon.
Thank you.
Thank you.